These are the Module 4, Part 1 notes, distributions for categorical and quantitative variables. So a couple of definitions at the top and then mostly examples on this. So our frequency distribution is going to be an organized representation and that's usually a table or a graph that displays the number of observations. So you can pause right here for a minute. Hopefully you can read that and write that down. And moving on, our relative frequency is a percentage that tells us how often a specific observation occurs within our total number of observations. So it's how often a specific thing occurs within the total number of observations. So our relative frequency distribution, we're going to kind of put these two things together. It's going to be an organized representation of the percentages. And we're going to go into that more in a minute. An organized representation of the relative frequencies or percentages. Apple Pencil issues, we're going to figure that out. Okay, so we are going to talk about frequencies and relative frequencies with this data we have here. We have a sample of 30 patients. That's important from a physical therapist's office on the type of rehabilitation required for the patients. So we are going to make a frequency table. We're going to organize the data this way. You see I have already written in the types of injuries so that we did not have to, you didn't have to watch me do that. Okay. So I'm going to create tallies here. Tallies are basically just little tick marks so I can keep track. And as I go along, I'm going to mark them off on the table above. Now, if I didn't have multicolors, I would just cross them out. Really easy to miss some for not paying attention to what we've got going on. So typically 4 straight up and down, that fifth one, that crosshatch gives us a group of 5. So where am I? Back. I got 1 back here, 1, 2 more there. So there's 1, 2, 3. I like to organize going straight down. because those are easy chunks to keep my eye on. Okay, I'm going to change the color here for our wrist injuries. I've got 1, 2. Sometimes there's few enough that you can keep track of that. I got next elbow, didn't do that right. I've got 1. That's it, 1. See, we've got hip injuries. Here's 1 hip, 2 hips, moving on to the neck. Maybe. I have got 1 neck injury. I don't see anything else. Shoulder, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 knee injuries. A little easier to keep track of things as we move on. Hand, 1, 2 hand injuries, which leaves us with 1 groin injury. I'm going to go ahead and take a minute to count and just make sure, even though I thought I was pretty careful keeping track of everything, making sure I haven't missed anything. So I've got 12 back injuries, 2 more wrists, that's 14. An elbow puts us at 15, 2 hips puts us at 17. 1 neck makes 18. 4 shoulder injuries, we're at 22. 5 knee injuries, that makes 27. 2 hand injuries puts us at 29, and 1 groin injury gives us a total of 30 injuries. The frequency is just how many times those happen. Again, if I add those, I get 30. Our relative frequency is how many times those happen in our entire set. So I have 12 back injuries out of my 30 injuries total. And so when we talk about relative frequencies, we want that percentage. And so I'm going to go ahead and divide 12 by 30, which is going to give me the decimal 0.4. Okay. I can put 1 more place after it, 2 places after that. Decimal point tells me my percentage, so that 0.40 is 40%. Typically, we will work with the decimals. Sometimes we'll write it as a percent. Okay, 2 divided by 30, I got 0.067. I'm going to go ahead and round to 3 places. That elbow, 1 out of 30, gives me a 0.033. Two hip injuries, that's going to be the same as above. And where else did I have a 2? Those hand injuries. I'm going to come down here and fill that in. One neck injury. Back down here, 1 groin injury. Four shoulder injuries, that 4 out of 30 is 0.133. And then my 5 knee injuries, 5 divided by 30 gives me the relative frequency of 0.0167. if I add all of these up, I get 1. So all of my relative frequencies have to add to 1. That gives me the total amount that things are happening. Okay. Again, when we convert from a decimal to a percent, we multiply by 100. We think about that as 0.067. The 0.06 takes me to the hundredths place. That's my percentage. The 7 is the decimal part, 6.7%. So 3.3% here. Definitely reach out if you don't remember how to work with percents, and we'll get you caught up on that. So I got 13.3% here, 16.7%, 6.7%, 3.3%, and I encourage you to add all of these together and see that we do actually get 100%.